Hello and welcome to this week's episode of FFS, for finance's sake. This week we're looking at furnished holiday lets. Are they still a good idea? Well, furnished holiday lets used to be the tax-savvy landlord's dream, a nice income stream, tax breaks galore, and the chance to pass on your investment tax-free. But times, as they say, are changing. With platforms like Airbnb coming under pressure in popular tourist hotspots, thanks to a mix of housing shortages, local council crackdowns, and yes, probably a few annoyed hotel chains, furnished holiday lets have been under the spotlight. And to add to the fun, the government has tightened the rules on what counts as a furnished holiday let and scrapped a few of those great tax benefits as well. So first of all, let's have a look at what's changed. Let's talk the tax relief. So previously, one of the perks of having a furnished holiday let was the generous treatment of expenses. If, for example, your boiler packed in and you replaced it with a like-for-like model, it could all be claimed as a repair. But say you fancy doing your bit for the planet and decided to install a heat pump instead. That's now classed as an improvement, not a repair, which means it's not deductible in the same way. You won't see that immediate tax benefit via your self-assessment tax return or as a limited company on the corporation tax return. It basically gets added to the asset, and you can only claim that when you sell that property on for a profit. And if you make a loss, you're not really going to get any benefit whatsoever. That's a big change. But the big blow has been the business property relief. So one of the biggest tax benefits of running a furnished holiday let was that it could qualify as a trading business, meaning your property might be eligible for business property relief. But in short, that means you could pass it down to your kids without inheritance tax getting their claws into your hard-earned cash. Rachel Reeves, she put the brakes on that. The government is now phasing this out from April 2025, removing one of the main incentives for running this type of business. It's just a huge shame and a huge blow for people who've set companies up in this way to benefit their families. And generally, this isn't the massively rich and wealthy. This is often the working people who are, the middle classes, those people in good jobs who've saved well, they've then invested. They're not super rich, but they're trying to look after their children and pass some of that on, and they're the ones who are most affected by this. We all know the super rich will find their own offshore grey area tax evasion to avoid these sorts of things, but it's the hard-working middle classes that have really been impacted by this Labour government. The next thing I want to talk about is the Airbnb hate. There has been a huge rise in Airbnbs, really since its inception, and originally it was obviously intended to be like a mattress in someone's house or, a spare bedroom. But more and more people are buying investment properties and Airbnb-ing them. And why wouldn't they? It's a great form of extra income. But the hotels hate it because they're obviously losing out on revenue there. And local councils claim that it's causing housing shortages. Now, in some places that may be true, but have a look at Whitby, North Yorkshire, lovely place to holiday at, really nice place. But, a small house there will cost you £400,000. That's not an average first-time buyer house, is it really? It's just not driving the behaviour that we want it to, really. And the result is the council has put up the rates and said anyone operating an Airbnb has to pay business rates of over £8,000. So that just prices a lot of people out of the market. But those houses aren't going to be purchased by first-time buyers. So it doesn't seem like anything more than a lose-lose situation there. But basically, if you're looking at doing a furnished holiday let, you want to really investigate the area that you are looking at investing in. What's the council like? What are the local residents like? Is there anything in the works that could disrupt your happy plans? Because this is a long-term investment. You don't want to buy it and then get stuck with a disgustingly high rates bill the following year that you just did not expect or budget for. Is it still worth having a furnished holiday let? Well, it really does depend. The right holiday let in the right area, it can still generate a really healthy income. even after you pay the tax on it. But it's not the passive hands-off investment that a lot of people imagine. You've got to think the difference between running a furnished holiday let and just having a standard property investment is you're going to have guest inquiries to handle, bookings to make, changeovers to organise, and cleaners to chase. I must say, cleaners are the Achilles heel of many furnished holiday let businesses. Finding a reliable one is like trying to find a unicorn that also irons for you. They're just really difficult to find, keep, have them to be really reliable. And the last thing you want is a call from a guest saying that the place is dirty because the cleaner hasn't even been, let alone done a bad job. But let's say you're local to where you're planning to do your investment and you don't mind rolling your sleeves up to do the changeover yourself. You could be sitting on a tidy little gold mine. But if you're hoping for a quiet retirement and a hands-free income, this is definitely not for you. You need to give that a rethink or consider outsourcing it to a management company. But even then, that's going to eat into your profits. And I've heard mixed reviews, so you'd probably want to get one that's recommended by someone that you know. You don't want to end up paying for a management company and then doing it all yourself. For those of you that know me, you know I'm a big supporter of furnished holiday lets, and I love having them myself. They are a bit of an administrative burden and eat into my evenings and weekends when my poor, long-suffering PA deals with them during the day. You know, there's the occasional nightmare that happens if the toilet breaks or something, but we are lucky to have a very good cleaner and maintenance people who are fairly good on hand. I think they can be a very good, safe investment for people of my generation that are scared of the stock market. You know, we've been brought up during the banking crash, and that really makes us worried about stocks and shares and how that might affect and that our capital. We're really scared of losing our capital, aren't we, as a generation? So property is a very favourable investment among those in their 30s and 40s. And I still think it's a safe investment. Even if you find the headache too much, you can always go back and make that holiday let just a standard residential let. But the important thing is to always do those figures before you purchase. You know, run the calculations, get a spreadsheet out and find out how much you'll actually make after you pay your taxes and repay any mortgage you may take out on the property. You know, value of property does go down sometimes, but generally speaking, over a 10-year period, it always goes up in value. Obviously, that could change. God knows, with Trump in power, anything can happen. In summary, furnished holiday lets aren't the tax-efficient darlings they once were, but with the right property in the right location and a willingness to muck in, they can still be profitable. Just don't go in wearing rose-tinted spectacles. It's a business, not a holiday. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you would like to hear more free business advice, please press that subscribe button to our free podcast or follow us on LinkedIn.